Now that we've got the servers installed and management tools are available, we're ready to enable some users for Lync and start testing all of this stuff out. So I'm in the control panel as the administrator. And if you click on this thing here, view your roles, you'll see that I am the CS administrator, meaning I have the ability to enable users for Lync. On the left-hand side, I'm going to go over to users. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do enable users here. So I don't have anybody enabled right now, so nothing's showing up in here. And if I did a search there, nothing would happen. So what I want to do is come in here and set this up. So I'm going to do an add. And now I'm going to find some of my existing AD users that are currently not enabled for Lync. So we'll take Alberto Cole, select OK here. And what we want to do is we want to home this user to a Lync pool. Currently, we just have the one central site in Phoenix and we have the one front end pool. So we're basically saying here, when Alberto logs in, he'll be registered and homed on this pool. Now, a SIP URI looks a lot like an email address. So they're asking here, how do you want to format that? Do you want to use their current email address? So if you have Exchange right now, we can use their existing email address. I like that option a lot because it keeps it really easy. The user already knows what their email address is. Now that's the same login that they will use in their Lync infrastructure. So that's a nice option. Another thing you can do is use their user principal name in Active Directory, which also looks like an email address. Or you can do something like this where you have same account name at your SIP domain. So again, this is all going to depend on your current infrastructure and how you have things set up. That's the format I'm going to use for this particular user here. Then on some of these options here, we're going to cover them in greater detail. Right now for telephony, I have some options. What I'm going to do for now is leave it on PC to PC only, meaning that this user could do an audio call with another Lync user. Later on, we'll get into enterprise voice where he can call the PSTN and do some other things. Also, the policies that are associated with this user are configurable. We're going to be managing all of these components as we go forward. But just to get up and running and get some basic Lync to Lync calls going for this user, that's all I would need to do. I would select enable. And at that point, he would show up in here as a Lync enabled user. You can see that he's enabled for PC to PC calls. Now, another thing you might want to keep in mind here is users that are in protected groups. So let's take a look at this. Let's try to enable the administrator account. So we'll just do a search here. We'll pick the administrator and select OK. Again, we'll home him on the pool.interfaceTTlabs.com and we'll do a SAM account name at our SIP domain. When I click on enable here, you'll see that we get this error, Active Directory operation failed on the domain controller, insufficient access rights to perform this operation. Now, the reason I'm getting this is because the administrator is part of a protected group. He's part of the domain admins group. And basically what that means is that group, any user in that group has inheritable permissions blocked in Active Directory. So one of the things here is you can get by that by enabling that on the user account in Active Directory, but it's really recommended that you use a separate administration account for day-to-day administration than you would for end user usage. So as a Lync user, I may be an administrator of this infrastructure, but I'm also going to be using Lync from an end user's perspective. I might want to have two accounts for that, mainly because of this whole thing with the permissions. You know, I might want to have a non-elevated account where I use my day-to-day applications. Now, if you really wanted to get around this, you could go into Active Directory. So run into Active Directory users and computers here. I could go to the administrator account. I'd want to make sure I'm viewing the advanced options first here in AD. But if you go into the properties of the administrator account, on the security tab, go to advanced. What you could do here is include these inheritable permissions. That would allow the Lync infrastructure to go ahead and enable that user for Lync. So that would be a workaround. But again, it's recommended that you use separate accounts. But from here, if I do enable, there we go. We've enabled the administrator account and everything's good there for him. Now, when it comes to doing this from the command line, a little bit different, but not very difficult. So this might be useful if you have to do things in bulk. Let's open up the Lync server management shell. So what I can do here is a get cs AD user, and maybe I just want to select the first few that are out there. I'll select the first 5, and I'm going to grab the SAM account name and the ID. So what we'll see here is we got a few users out there that are coming back in this first list of 5. I've already enabled the administrator account, and we can see that the ID contains the distinguished names. So you can see what OU they're in. So you can see we got some users in the accounting OU. So I could pull maybe everybody from accounting. So I could say, Now give me all the Active Directory users where the ID is like accounting. So using some wildcards here. So basically building a filter on that ID, pulling the accounting keyword out of there and kind of searching for those users. And if we just did a select on the SAM account name, you'd see that we do have a good group of users out there. So we could in bulk basically say, hey, give me everybody that's in accounting, and then send that down the pipeline to enable CS user. So this would give me the ability to bulk enable these users for Lync all in one shot. And one of the things you want to make sure that you do is fill out all of the parameters to identify how the user should be set up, whether they should be using a certain SIP address type. Now, for example, you could do a SIP address type, SAM account name, SIP domain, in this case, interface, ttlabs.com, and registrar pool.interface, ttlabs.com. So very similar to what we did in the control panel. And if you hit enter, we end up enabling all those guys for Lync, come back in here to the control panel and basically do another refresh type of thing. And you can see all those users that were in accounting are now enabled for Lync. So the shell could give you some capabilities to do this in bulk. But if you need to enable users for Lync, you could simply come into the control panel and enable them here.